I'd like to welcome all of our DAC members and our visitors and our staff and our county commissioner advisor so that we can get started. This is the November 9th meeting of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Advisory Committee. And the meeting is convening remotely via Zoom, and please note as recorded that it is being recorded. I wanted to do just a very brief thing. I love that our bylaws tell us what we are, and it's a short sentence. It says the purpose of the DAC is to advise the Board of Directors of North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District on acquisitions, design, planning, development, and parks, recreation facilities, and on programs, maintenance, and operations. So our job here is to be prepared to do that. And I just wanted to remind us that's the context in which we're meeting. So first item on the agenda is to approve the, we've all gotten copies of the meeting summary. And my question is, are there any corrections or additions to the meeting summary? Okay, seeing or hearing none, they are accepted as written. So the next item on our agenda is to, in fact, look into our discussion agenda. And first item is the 23-24 budget prep. I assume that's you, Mike.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I don't have much to say as an introduction. I'm going to turn the next two discussion items over to our Financial Services Manager, Elizabeth Staley now, and she's going to run through it. You have all seen the first set of slides, the Budget 101 for the last couple of months, so hopefully you've had a chance to look over it, because for a matter, just in the interest of time, I don't want to say we're going to skim, but we're going to move fairly quickly through these so that we can get on to other business in the meeting as well. So with that, Elizabeth, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to go over a couple highlights of this. You've had it for a couple of weeks, so I'm hoping that you looked over it and maybe have questions tonight or anytime. You can give me a call or an email about it. So this is just budgeting 101 for those of you who might want a refresher or have never done governmental budgeting before. And really what I wanted to point out is that our budget is the legal authorization to spend money. So our appropriations, which you would find on the last page of your budget, is what we are allowed to spend. That's what the board has approved. And this is mandated by Oregon state law. So we follow the law in developing and presenting the budget. We have a budget committee. We have 5 on our budget committee now. They've also received this document, and they receive the budget document, hear the budget message, and approve the proposed budget. So we have 3 steps in the budget process: the preparing the budget, approving the budget, and adopting the budget. And the budget committee approves the budget. That approved budget then goes to the board, and they adopt the budget in June. Preparing the budget, that's what we're doing now. We're getting ready to start on our fiscal year 23-24 budget, then approve and adopt. So just kind of wanted to go through those three things with you. Revenues for the general fund are made up of, this is not the slide I wanted, but we have 5 different programs in the general fund: administration, programs and community centers, which is our recreation, sports, and aquatic park; older adult services, which is our social services, our nutrition and transportation programs; parks, trails, and natural areas, which is our parks, trails, and natural areas; and planning and development. The expenditures for those programs in the general fund are made up of personnel services, which we contract with the county; materials and services, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's office supplies and program supplies. Transfers come out of the general fund to help pay for capital projects. The general fund pays for a percentage of capital project that SDCs, grants, or other funding doesn't. Allocated costs are costs that we pay to the county for things like legal, HR, administration, other finance roles. And then we have contingency and reserve, which contingency, there are two different things. Contingency is like a savings account, so that if an emergency happens or something like that, we have that budgeted, and we can ask the board to approve use of those funds during the year. Reserves are reserved for other things. You don't have to identify them, but they're reserved and you cannot touch those for an entire fiscal year. We have a question. Yes. Can't hear you.
How is the contingency reserve determined? It looks like it's around 11%.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question.
Is it just a straight percentage or something more?
It's we follow a rule of 5% emergency contingency and 10%. 10%, and I just lost it. So it's about a 15% contingency, and then the reserve are funds that those aren't built on a percentage, but the contingency is. Did that answer your question, David?
Yeah, I guess for now, some places you do it as a 60 days operating costs or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of, it depends upon what your organization does.
Yeah,
so I'll let it go for now.
It's a percentage of our expenditures, so it's based on a 5 and 10% calculation of our organizational expenditures. So what we would need to, pay for payroll, if we had to pay for payroll for 3 months or something like that. Our other funds are for SDCs, which you are aware of, and for capital outlay and capital repair and replacement. So capital outlay is something that is $5,000 or more and has a year or more of life, and we depreciate those as we buy them. Capital improvement projects are big projects, like our park projects, building parks and things like that. Capital repair and replacement are the smaller projects, but still very important, things like what we're doing now with adding the bark chips to the playgrounds and improving habitat for pollinators, things like that. This is new, and hopefully you've seen this. I have not seen any proposals come through yet, but this is our new budget proposal form, and it is online. It looks slightly different online because we couldn't put everything there pretty like that. But this is to get ideas on budget proposals for the coming year. And we are asking that these be received by December 15th so that we can review them, discuss them, and plan ahead for the next budget year. So look for that online. It's in under our finance page on our on our webpage. We've already gone over what capital projects we're working on now. This is just a list for your review. And then this is our capital repair and replacement projects. Kevin and his crew have done many of these already. So just another reminder of what all the projects that we're doing. There's some terms used in the budget process that you might not be familiar with. So read over those and let me know if you have any questions. And then of course, the real idea of a budget is to make sure that total requirements equal total resources. You have to have a balanced budget for Oregon budget law. Are there any more questions?
Yes, Anita.
Yeah, I took a special interest in this budget proposal form, and I'm glad to know where you'd find it on the website, but how will people even know it exists? Is there some kind of outreach about it? Is there some promotion or advertising or something on the initial page of the website that says, hey, if you want to do this, go here and you'll find a form? Or because otherwise I don't think anybody would even know about it except the people at this meeting right now.
And to be fully transparent on it, this form was really primarily designed for you all as a way to be able to take ideas that you all from the DAC, hopefully you're hearing from your area folks on things, and a way to easily funnel it through. Because what we'll do is we'll take this. We do have it on our website. We have not really done any press releases or promoted it because we're really, again, this was more designed to be a form for the DAC to use. We just said it made sense to put it on the public page as well. And you'll see in the budget calendar where we'll come back and review any submissions with the DAC to see what had been turned in.
Right. Okay. That's thanks for clarifying that. My other thought about it was when you talk about the proposals being analyzed for financial impact and diversity, equity, and inclusion and feasibility. Of course, what came to my mind was the quest for a systems plan and a needs assessment that looks over the whole district, so that you would analyze the proposals in the context of what's needed where in the district, so that it's a whole system instead of, well, somebody in this area would like this or somebody in that other area would like that, but it really fits into a whole system that you would assess things in terms of the whole place. And the other thing was, let's see what I jotted down here. I guess that's basically it, that the needs assessment still seems like a wonderful thing on the horizon that I'm looking forward to.
And it's closer on the horizon than it was before, now that we have our planning staff starting to look at those. So
okay, because that new person you hired.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so for this year's budget, again, where we figured a lot, if anybody was going to submit items for this, they're not going to be of the capital level multi-million. This would be more of this, either the capital repair level, we really like to have another pollinator bed at this park, or these park benches are really old and crusty, but we like using the park, so can we get them replaced? Those types of requests. This is really more for next year's actual budget expenditure type of things that the DAC or from the public through the DAC think are a priority for us to consider as I put the budget together for next year.
So as an example, just something that came up recently from the Friends of River Villa Park, some of the neighbors had the dream of the gates not just being gates that don't get closed, but gates that get closed automatically. Would that be something that would go on a form like this, or would that be some other?
I mean, yeah, it could be, and we would handle it, like it says in there, we would look at the financial impact and review all of, for all of these other things, and compare it with, any of those others. But yes, that could be a form for that.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess in a sense, I'm really glad you're fleshing out what this thing is about, this form, and hoping that, everyone will really tune into it who's on the DAC, who may not be at the meeting tonight, so that we can take what we've heard from people in our areas and put it onto the form. And yeah, I guess that's all I want to say right now.
Thank you, Anita. Missouri.
Hi, yes. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the presentation. So I think last time you were on, we discussed for people like me who sometimes need a little help with notes, that not to waste staff's time, that if, when you guys are talking internally, if there are any notes present, that a cleaned, allowed version is allowed to be passed to us. I don't know if that was happened or took place. Like, for example, I'm looking at the document. Oops, I closed it. I'm looking at my page 32 on the document, like construction, 14 million, first quarter, $137,866. Like, okay, 1%, great, but kind of what? I know I can ask you these off question, but that was kind of my general theme running through the budget.
Sorry, are you talking about the financial report?
Sorry,
Yeah.
what talking about? What am I saying? I'm using budget and financial report interchangeably. Yes.
Oh.
Sorry, financial report.
Okay, so
Thank
you're
you for
looking at,
correcting me. Yes, you understood what
Okay.
I'm saying. Yes, sorry.
Okay. so we'll go over that next, but yes, I understand what you're asking for.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Thank-
too early. Sorry,
I
thank
got
you.
it, thanks. I'd like to continue on just a tad on what Anita said. I actually also, Mike, appreciate the clearer understanding of what this form is for, and that it is really for the 23-24 budget, as it says at the top, but that I missed until now. And so thank you for that, and thanks for the clarification. Mr. Ryan.
Ugh, my mouse is going haywire. Yeah, I just want to comment that I appreciate this form. This goes above and beyond what a lot of agencies do. So thank you, and thank the district for putting this together. I think it's a very above and beyond approach, and I appreciate it, and I think as a DAC we appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you. Me too. Okay, back to you, Elizabeth.
I'm guessing those are all the questions for this presentation, so I can go on to the financial report.
Sounds good to me. Oh, Anita has her
Yes,
hand up.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, this is the right time. I was just thinking that the other thing I wanted to bring up, whether it's the right time or not, is that if the website could show parks by sub area, it would really help, I think, get a sense of which areas are the most park deficient, or which are the, better off areas, or, just part of this same discussion about needs assessment and the overall picture. If there's anybody who could take that on and update the website, because right now you do it, but it even still has Happy Valley and whatever. Now, if you want to look for a park or get a sense of where the parks are and where the parks aren't, it's kind of difficult.
Yeah,
So that's a dream request of mine, that we would be set up at some point where we could really see, oh, this sub area has this acreage or this number of parks, or this has this recreational amenity or something. So that's all I wanted to add.
We're going to have an equity lens on how we show information too on our website, because there are some problematic things with starting to lay things out if we're not putting that lens on. And I would say I agree on it. It's on our list when we go through our website update, which there's many, as you indicate, there's many pages that need to be updated. It's a very
I know.
grown process. So I recognize that, and we do need to be able to show things differently. How that is, we'll get to when we start building that new.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
That brings a follow-up question I have that has come up in previous conversations. How's NCPRD defining the equity lens that you were speaking of as far as what kinds of criteria and then sources of the information? But let's start with criteria, and just a broad stroke now, so I can get a sense of when you say look at it from the equity lens, what are you referring to?
Well, we're looking at is information that we're putting out onto the website going to be insensitive, or I'm trying to figure out the best way to say, because it's not a list of things that you look at and you check a box necessarily. It's what we consider. So what came up when Anita was speaking on that is, first of all, the 5 sub areas are meant to be not geographic, looking at how many parks are in 1 and how many parks are in 2 and how many parks are in 3 and looking at equity on that. It's meant to be representative of you all as the DAC members, representing about 1/5 of the population of the district and representing that way. So I get nervous when we start talking about comparing areas by our DAC sub area boundaries, because that's not really how the district planning is approached, is looking at it of one versus another. In our planning process, as we've talked about, there's going to be spatial analyses done, but not with information that we're gathering. It's going to be U.S. census data, other economic and socioeconomic data that will indicate where within the district we have socioeconomic disparities, where parks are and aren't, where trail connectors and neighborhood connectors are. That's in the systems plan process. But again, I keep strongly saying the DAC sub areas are not meant to be political subdivisions. They're meant to be representative subdivisions.
Yeah.
So,
I greatly appreciate that and don't disagree with you. I just want to comment on the tail end of that. I actually think it's important, though. One of the standards that they deal with is how far, and it's in the comprehensive plan, how far does somebody travel to a used equity, like in economics, and that's great. And age, us old people, I can say old people, I am one, make up one subgroup. But the issue for me is how close, and this is the closest thing that comes to having sub areas, not about sub areas in particular, but in each area, how many people are more than a mile from a park? And there's things about how many square feet a park. I don't want to have that whole conversation now, but there was a lot of work that went into what is sufficiency in parks, and it has to do with closeness and acreage and population. And so
yeah,
that would be something,
level
it's not
service.
political, that's something that be looked at that is by geography.
I'm not sure how I got into this conversation as well, but we are far off topic of our financial reports, which is the section that we're on. So can we respectfully get back to that?
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know this off topic or on topic part fits, because we got into that because we were actually talking about whatever the question that Anita just asked about.
Which had nothing to do with Elizabeth's report. So again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but we do have a fairly heavy agenda, and we just spent a good chunk of time talking about level of service and sub areas versus financial information.
Right. No. Well, I don't know about versus. I take exception to that, but yes, Ryan, please go ahead.
Yeah, just since I've done this for a long time, just to let you all know that we're a little bit ahead of the game by talking about these subjects right now. And a lot of what you're talking about are standard things that are put in. And you can even talk to Ben. Ben does works in system plans. These are a lot of what you're talking about are standard things that go into good system plans. And I think we need to give the principal planner time to work out those additional details, such as demographics, marginalized communities. And but it's good to hear that you're all thinking about that. It will come. I've had this question asked a lot. It will come. We might be just a little bit ahead of the curve.
Thank you, Ryan. I think you're back in your court, Elizabeth.
Okay. So this is our quarterly financial report for Q1, July through September. And this is a funky one because our beginning fund balances are not posted yet because we're finishing up our audit. So as soon as our audit is done, and it should be any day now, we'll get those beginning fund balances posted. So you'll see the actuals on those. One thing I wanted to note on the general fund is that the beginning fund balance will probably come in a little less than we anticipated because of how we account for the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funds. So we had assumed that they were a transfer from the county, and we included them in our ending fund balance when we did our budget. They are not. They should be accounted for when the expenditure is done. So there's it's a matching principle in accounting. So when the expenditure happens, you realize the revenue at the same time. So that's a little different than what you see. But you'll see here, these are current and actual revenues and expenditures for the July through September period. And expenditures are a little higher than revenues because we haven't received any property tax yet. We usually receive property tax beginning in November and on through the year. For the SDC funds, we have received a little bit, let me make that a little smaller. We have received a little bit of SDCs from the different zones. You can see that we received some in zone 1, 2, and 3. Zone 1 and 2, sorry. But we've spent a little bit out of those because we have projects that are charged to each of those. And then in our asset development fund, our last fund, we don't really receive revenues in there. We get transfers from either the general fund or the SDC funds, and those are considered revenue. And then we expend as we transfer those when we have the expenditure. So that's again matching. And then this is just the review of all of the pages, that follow. So you can see where all of our revenues are coming in from, and you can see where all of our expenditures are being made. Do you have any questions on those?
Well, if I understood what Missouri was asking, this would be as good a place as any to put that in, or you can wait till you're farther into this document. But if I understood his question.
So you want to see, I think you're talking more about the general or the capital fund. Sorry, I don't know what's. Well, you were asking to see, what we were spending that money on, right? Like out of the capital projects?
It's page 32 for me, asset development fund 480, line item 48150 out of expenditures.
Yeah, so that's at the end of where she's not there yet. I jumped the gun on that. I apologize, but
I
the
do not know
general
what happened
question
to my
was the
screen.
same about notes.
Yeah, I can add, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to my work. It just disappeared. I can add notes to explain what those expenditures are for, certainly.
Awesome. And then more of a general question, are there any like crib notes or notes that like if the staff's doing their job and there happen to be notes taken about this topic that we're discussing, that could be passed to us, and if it's redacted or needs to be edited so it's appropriate, that's fine. Is there anything along those lines? I think we spoke last time roughly about that idea, and if that does take place in like a staff meeting, that we could be provided a copy of those notes.
We don't really take notes like that. I mean, really, this is a quarterly budget report, not a in-depth line item by line item operational report. What we typically use these for or have in the past is it's the benchmark. It's the first quarter. So theoretically, if everything worked perfectly, 25% of our revenue would have come in and 25% of our expenditures would have been expended. And we look at the variance in the report, which we show you. We've spent 7% instead of 25%, or we've brought in 49% of our revenue versus the expected, where we should only be at 25% theoretically. So we don't really have notes on that. I guess if you were wanting something more along the lines of just kind of explanations of high variances one way or the other, I I guess I would challenge of what knowledge base is that coming from if you're asking why our, say, tissue paper per printing paper line item was at 25%, higher than expended. That's what we talk with you all about, the bigger numbers and using that first quarter of the 25%. And that's why Elizabeth goes through the explanation of, hey, first quarter always looks funky because we don't always have usually don't have our audited fund balance beginning. And we haven't brought in hardly any of our revenues because of taxes. So I'm trying to understand what more detail would be needed from the DAC.
Okay, so like, for example, if I'm understanding, like, land improvements, 61% was used. So that's for one quarter. That seems to be, you'd expect, as you said, 25%, et cetera, each quarter. So I guess if we want to go down what you were saying, Michael, of maybe it's only a note or some sort of comment about the values that are out of margin would be helpful.
That's going to put a lot of extra work. I'll reserve to have the other commissioners or members speak.
Okay, we'll get around to that. Dave, you were up, and then Ryan.
I guess I would just suggest if people have questions about something specific that they send them maybe to Mike, and he can answer the question if he can do that. Send them out as an email so we don't waste a lot of time here going down rabbit holes and things. It seems like we've done a lot of that lately, and I'd like to avoid that so we can keep to a timeline.
And Ryan.
Yeah, just a quick add-on, so you're looking at 48,200 land improvements. The budget for the year is 105. Projects happen all throughout the year, and that 64,500 happened right now. I think we've got to be careful about digging into the weeds on everything, because we still need the staff to be out there providing the services. And if we're going to be asking for 48,200, for instance, I have a line item 48,200 that I have 18 projects in, my colleagues have 42 projects in, and we lump that all together, and that's our budget for the year. That takes a lot of time away from providing service to our community. So it's a little weird budgeting because it's government. Yeah, I just needed to comment on that.
Okay, yeah, just to clarify, I'm not asking for wasting staff's time. I understand that time's expensive and everyone has things to do. But if there is a place to where some things are documented and written down, that those notes could be passed to us. That's what I'm asking. And if that doesn't take place, great. But I'm not asking for extra work to be done to explain these things. Yeah, there's a difference there, what I'm trying to ask for.
Gotcha. No, and thanks for that clarification. And I would repeat what I think David had said is, we send these reports out ahead of time, and if there are particular things that you are interested in and knowing, like, well, why is it at 99% of budget in the first quarter? A quick email to me, and I'll pass that on to somebody that's going to probably be able to better answer. But we can get you those answers pretty quick.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you that the 64,500 was spent on playground safety chips and bark mulch. So that's what we spent that on, because we did do those projects. Ryan's right. There's sometimes we do projects earlier and sometimes when we have to wait for better weather. But that's what that 64
Did you
was
know
for.
that off the top of your head, or did you have do you know the budget that well? So you know
I am that brilliant, Grover.
That wasn't the question. The question was, do you know the whole budget and all the items? And because that's the kind of place, because I do the same thing with the library, and the library actually, they have notes, and they include the notes when they give us the report. So we can at least know what broad categories covered, general topics, not down to, I'm sorry, Mike thinks we're going to want to ask for toilet paper or printer paper, but no, we were talking about in the big price items.
Right, and in the actually, and I don't know what happened to my presentation, but in the paragraph that talks about Asset Development Fund 480, it does go through exactly what the total expenditures were made up of. So the 202,366 that we have spent, it is detailed in that paragraph on this
Which-
page.
Which paragraph, which page? I'm not.
So I don't know what number it is in your forms, but it's the second page of the financial report summary.
Mhm,
It goes through each fund and what we've spent.
mhm.
And so there is a title, Asset Development Fund 480. And there's a
Right.
paragraph that talks about the revenues coming in and all of the expenditures, and it actually details what we've spent that $202,000 on. So you'll see that 5,000 was spent on capital repair and replacement projects, which I could add more detail to that. 18,833 for the SDC methodology project, 19,000 for the Concord property, and 99 for the Milwaukee Bay project. So it
Yeah, well,
does
those didn't-
detail that.
They're not on the report that I have.
You should have gotten the same report. I apologize.
We're over on the, it's literally the second, or is it the second page of the,
Mhm.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. It is you have the page that has the budget calendar. the
Yeah,
working
page
draft
26.
budget calendar, and it's 2 pages past that. At the top of it, it's just a very short, less than a half a page. It says Asset Development Fund 480.
Okay, good. Back in that part, not in the numbers we're going through now. Back in that part is where it said current revenue 118,000, and in the text, it talks about the 18,000. Okay, good. Now I know where you are.
Okay.
That wasn't where the questions were, but go ahead.
So that paragraph refers back to the budget or the financial report that follows.
Okay,
So it's the same exact numbers.
okay.
So if you want more detail in those paragraphs, we can certainly add that, but it does detail it out quite well. I'm going to, if there's no more questions, I'm going to share the budget calendar.
Well, actually, I did have another question, and it's still in this stuff, and it was a page. I know your screen's down, but it was on the one for, as an example, the asset development page. And no, it wasn't on that one. It was the one on the zone 1. It says that there was $99,945 spent in the first quarter. And there, I try to keep up, and I have no idea what kinds of things those SDCs were spent on.
So of the current expenditures in zone 1,
Mhm.
I guess I did combine them, but in zone 1, we spent money on the SDC methodology, Milwaukee Bay Park. Looks like that was it. And then there's a collection fee that we are charged by DTD, the Transportation Development Department. That was $825 of those
But again,
total expenses.
That is detailed out in the report. It's in the text above the summaries of where expenditures and revenues came from and went to.
Okay, I'm learning, so I have to go back to the summary that was in front of those numbers for okay, to the end of September, 111,000 were capital projects totaling 111,000. I'm not. Excuse me for being, okay, so this is on sub area 1. Okay, good. It may just mean that I need to know where to look. So I'm looking at the sub area 1. SDCs, that's 281, right?
Yes, so all of the SDC expenditures were combined in that
Okay,
explanation. So zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3, the total expenditures of those zones were $111,925. And of that, $23,222 was work related to the SDC methodology project, which comes out of all of the zones. And $88,703 for work related to the Milwaukee Bay Park project, which is being spent out of zone 1. And a small fee of $825 also. So
Okay.
that's what the 111,925 is.
okay, good. So then when I get over to the page that actually is zone 1 with more detail, the 99,945 was explained across some different combination of whatever and of groupings. Anyway, I still, it's important for me to be able to follow along with budgets in works and, I mean, with the actuals and works and budgets, to have some sense of where the money goes. And I am certainly not talking about toilet paper or whatever. I'm talking about that's nearly $100,000. And so that's the kind of thing that at least have some idea of the broad chunks where it went is important to me.
I want to make sure that you're looking, you were referencing the 99,000, whatever it was, $943. You're talking about asset development fund 480. That's not
Correct.
the
That's why I
SDC.
started my question. That's true. That is where I started my question with the, no, not, yeah, right, asset development, exactly, 9,000. No, that's not on there. It's on the page that says zone 1, and it's got a bunch of details, and it says operating budget, and it says 99,945. That's what I'm referring to, zone 1.
And part of that was spent on Milwaukee Bay Park and part of it was spent on the SDC methodology. Those are the only 2 projects we spent money on this quarter.
Okay. And the priorities for using SDCs has been determined how?
I guess I'm not understanding your question. These were budgeted projects with a budgeted amount from the SDCs.
And to remind, once our budget is approved, that is our authority to spend that money as it's been laid out in the budget.
Okay,
So I'm not quite
And-
sure where this line of questioning is going on, under whose authority we spent and decided SDC expenditures.
I don't think I quite used that. I said, but methodology was used, but was
I
used.
guess I
to
would
just-
say budget methodology then.
Okay, well, again, as always, in most groups, I'm the only one who has as much interest in budgets. So I'll carry this conversation on another time, but I'm still of the opinion that for my support on things, I have to understand what the money means. And so let's go ahead through this calendar because I think it'll be another example of speaking of that same thing. Please continue, Elizabeth, and thank you.
So this is our, it's a working draft. So we work off of the budget calendar from the county and they often change their dates. So our dates can change and may change as we get further into the budget process. So we are at this point, the Budget 101 presentation to the DAC. We've sent current year projection worksheets to our executive team and they filled them out to figure out what our year-end projections were. We use those figures to figure out our beginning or our ending fund balance to be the beginning fund balance of the next year. So the projection worksheets have been done, and our next step is to do budget request worksheets. So the budget requests are for the fiscal year 23-24. And we talked to our executive team about what revenues they're anticipating and what expenditures they are anticipating. We talk about things like utilities that are going to be increased, and of course payroll, which is a huge part of the budget, and then of course any capital projects or capital repair and replace projects that are on the horizon. So that's what we're doing now. We'll do that pretty much through the month of December. And then you'll see that these are, if you can see the different colors here. So the different colors relate to who's participating in the budget process. So you are purple, so the Budget 101 presentation. And then in January, we have reviewing budget proposal forms with the DAC. We're hoping to get some of those budget proposal forms filled out by you or filled out by your community. And we will review every proposal that we've received with you. Then in February, we'll review the requested budget with you. And then in April, the proposed budget. So the proposed budget then would go to the budget committee for approval, and then to the board for adoption in June.
So, does anybody have a question? Okay, I do. Having been through this process a few times, I know that when the budget is actually in play, if you will, and as Mike just said a few minutes ago, once it's approved, it's approved. But there was a requirement in the last 2 cycles where there were monies that were being attributed as the source of an approved budget that had not been yet approved as far as being used from there. And so an asterisk was added. So that's happened 2 times ago. And then the last time, it was the assurance of the county executive that in fact it would be sorted out before any of the monies were actually attributed. And I've missed in both cases when that secondary part has taken place. I don't want to hash it out now, but the idea that we were going to review a budget in February, and then we're going to review it again in April without more clarification as to history, where the money has come from and gone, and where the specific money is going to come for that's attributed. We'll be back on that same issue again to be brought up in the general budget meeting to talk about attributing funds that have not been gone through the priority process as our performance calls for, et cetera. So it's the only reason I'm bringing this up, and our job on the district advisory committee is to represent the community as far as that we understand. We're not accusing anybody of anything. Please don't hear that. But if we don't understand, then we can't really give a knowledgeable consent or approval of something. And I just want to make sure I understand. And that isn't true at this moment. And I'm looking forward to, before we come up to those 2 dates, that it is clearer and that I do understand. Yes, Mike.
What I would ask from both the chair and anybody then is, if you don't understand, please don't wait until the meeting to ask, because it's counterproductive. We're feeling like games of gotcha, where we may not have the information, and that sounds unprofessional on our end.
Right.
And that's why we send out agenda packets early, with the presumption and hope that people are reading them and formulating questions. And if there are a lot of questions about just not understanding how the budget works, I know Elizabeth and I would be more than willing to go over it again with anybody. But I don't. I'm trying to streamline our process and make the purpose of showing you the budget calendar isn't to show the faults in the process. We have 3 more steps added into this year's budget calendar with the DAC than there were in the last year's budget calendar. And I can't guarantee that we'll meet all of those touch points because, again, we saw last year the budget calendar changes by finance at the county level. But we're trying to give you all as much opportunity, also understanding that we have a finance committee or a budget committee that is also reviewing the budget, and we're answering their questions as well. So please, we do not mind answering questions, but if they can be formulated and given to us ahead of time, we can be much more informed in our response. Thank you.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Suri, that you started with?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And Mike, I want to clarify, this isn't about a gotcha at all. It is about fulfilling our duties as DAC representatives of the residents to understand. And the amount of time that gets spent having to study the material and then go find this and then go for an answer is we're all volunteers. It's a lot of work. So I was just asking for things that would make it easier, and the idea of having notes that attributed where the $99,975 was spent would be helpful for me, because that's not a small amount, and it certainly wasn't something on toilet paper or copy paper, as you referred to. So I'm done with that. Are you done, Mike? Your hand's still up. Thank you. Anything else, Elizabeth?
That's all I have for tonight.
Well, is this goodbye? Are you leaving now?
I would like to go have dinner with my family, but yeah,
That's a great idea. All of us have that in mind.
I'm sure I will see you again,
Well,
but
thank
it's been a
We'll see
joy.
how that works out. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Okay, so that was Budget Prep 101 and first quarter numbers. Next item is the Integrated Pest Management Plan. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for providing all that information. It was a significant amount of reading, but I greatly appreciated getting what was missing for me. So thank you for that. So look forward to hearing your presentation.
Well, we really didn't have any presentation. We were asked to provide the report of what we do and give you the IPM that we follow. I have Kevin Kaysen available here to answer questions. You know, I guess to open, I would say it would be helpful to me if it were clear to both myself and staff and the DAC of what we're trying to discuss. Is it the entire IPM? Is it individual components? Is it with an eye towards making a recommendation to change our existing IPM in the process that we would do through the board? Just to have kind of a framework, because there's been, you know, a lot of information getting sent out about, you know, in a lot of different stuff. And so it's not really clear to me. We provided the plan that we follow currently and the resources that we use to do so and under what authorities we're doing so. If there's recommendations coming forth to change what we currently do, I'd like to have that set out at the outset. It would be helpful.
Good. I appreciate that question. And just as a reminder to everyone, how we got onto this topic in the first place is several residents, and it's now there are 13 residents who are all near the Alma Myra Park who have concerns about the health and well-being of the existing trees there. So that's what got started on it. And so they brought up a concern about the spraying, and then we looked to find the MP and couldn't find one. So we made that request. So it isn't like anybody's got a plan or a plot, but there were a number of residents. And like I said, it's now they have a Friends of Alma Myra Park who are concerned about the health of the park. And they're all neighbors of that area. And there's 13 of them. So it is on that behalf that, and that's in sub area 1, So that's Missouri and I, and that's what we brought it forward for, was to actually look into what is the procedure and how we're doing with it and so on and so forth. And again, I thank you for doing that. So that answers your question, I hope. And Ryan has his hand up.
Yeah, so another clarifying comment here. When that discussion happened, I was the person that recommended or requested that we have the IPM provided to us and potentially at some point put online because of the concerns of that community. That was as far as it went. There was no request for presentation. It was just to first get the IPM. At that point, once we get the IPM, we can then read it on our own time. And if we want to add it to the agenda to discuss, we can do it at that time. That was the whole point of that request from me.
Okay, thanks. Yes, Mike.
And I do want to let everybody know the IPM as it was sent to you is available on our website. And so anybody can go and review that. That's what the link was that was provided in the report, was directly to our public website.
Well, that's not a link. Somebody has to have that link to go find it. It's not searchable, to my knowledge.
It is on our drop-down menu. Jessica, you would have to remind me of where it was, or if maybe we haven't put it up yet. I know that was our intent. We were building that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's up right now. It's under Parks and Trails and under Natural Resources.
Okay.
Thanks, Jessica. I know that was our intent. I thought it had been done. So it's available for anybody to take a look at. That's with links to the sites, citations of the other organizations that are involved as well.
Okay,
And
thank
again,
you.
I want to make sure that everybody understands. I'm not, as the director, I'm not opposed to a conversation about better ways to manage our pests and manage the parks. It is a very fraught with lots of different factors for us to try and solve in any one or even probably a couple of meetings. So that's why I wanted to say, if there was somebody that glyphosate, I'll just say it. That's the one that most people are talking about. And if we want to have just a specific glyphosate conversation, obviously we can't do that right now, and be that, but that is something we could have a very in-depth of, where and when and how we specifically have used it, even at specific parks, because again, logs are kept anytime we're using these harmful chemicals.
Thank you. Missouri, yes, sir.
Hi, so I guess to kind of step back. So the concerns are more, from what I gather, are centered around how can we move towards a more environmentally friendly, sustainable health of the soil. And we're not talking about humans. How can we integrate ourselves back into the planet in a way that allows us to manage these parks without doing harm that we are now learning that we're doing, right? So if the conversation has to continue over multiple meetings, that's fine. But how do we get this process started? Because now we have members of the community worrying about these polymers being used, being sprayed. We understand that with current research, there's always a lag time in science that the cause of them is now doing calculable scientific harm to the ecological soil, the undergrowth. So now moving forward, now that we have this information, how can we as a community, as a group of people here in these scheduled meetings, move forward to hopefully move towards better practices that not only help the systems of, the biological systems, but also potentially can help save money for NCPRD and the county, or drive towards a more sustainable model that can be used elsewhere? How could we be a vanguard potentially about that? So that kind of extends outwards. But so to back up, where should we start in getting this conversation to continue in a serious manner? As from what I understand, Michael, you're saying we probably can't handle that right now. I agree. But how do we have to add this to a new meeting? Do we have to schedule additional meetings? I know more bureaucracy and in pomp, but how can we actually drive this forward without just having this be a, oh, great, we've informed the people, we're using this, here's some information, we can provide you logs later on, but that's it. So I guess this is a serious matter that is now bubbling up to us.
Well, but I guess to answer your question, it's with the presumption right now that we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing and it needs to change. And what we were trying to be very clear in our report is we've talked to all the experts. I mean, there is a lot of opinion and there's a lot of facts backed up by data, and we have to use the fact side. We try and follow. We're not saying we are the on top most environmentally friendly process that we use. What we're saying is that from a park management, many acres management standpoint, we are using best management practices as developed by the Department of Agriculture in Oregon, all of the Xerxes, all of these different agencies. And it's not just us. We're not using our own unique approach and letting others do it. This is a part of a multi-regional pest management that reaches all the way up into Canada and south of us. So it's the conversation, as you stated it, and I'm not taking any offense to it, is that there's a presumed deficiency or something that has to be changed. And I'm not opposed to looking at what we would need to change, but I don't necessarily agree that some of the articles that were put out. I mean, one on soil biomes, that was specifically related to agriculture, not to parks and nature areas. It was specifically to increasing the biome to increase food production. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can look at articles and scientific research, but we use a best management practice. We try and take the best evidence-based science from all of those different resources cited. They all come up with an integrated type of plan. And the presumption that we're doing harm. I mean, somebody said we are doing harm to our parks. I don't agree with that. We are doing the least amount of harm to maintain invasive weeds that threaten our native plant species. And we're doing it in a targeted, very strategic and considerate way where we're not broadcast spreading any of our herbicides. It's if we see a specific plant, and we don't take care of all weeds, if we see a specific plant that's on the list that is harmful to our native environment or is on that general list of things, that's when it's targeted for application at the lowest level or the highest dilution, the lowest concentration that is prescribed for that specific thing. We have people making many decisions along the way before we even get to spraying, and then we keep a log of every time that's done. We can't, looking at there are lots of models to, like the Harvard example in the article of going to organic soil, where you just remove everything and you build the biome in the soil. I mean, that's interesting, but it's still a test plot at Harvard. So we wouldn't be looking to do anything maybe other than more than a test plot. But I guess where I'm saying is I'm not going from a basic presumption that there's anything that we're doing that has a driving need for change. I don't think that the Alma Mater argument is accurate. That what we're doing in our integrated pest management is having a negative impact on any trees or shrubs or things that people feel that is. So that's where I was asking, this clarification. If there's a general sense that we're doing something wrong, that's a different conversation than trying to understand our existing IPM better, and with the ability to make some tweaks if need be. But that's a different conversation. So thank you. Sorry, Chair, I took more time than I intended.
Thank you. Anita.
Thank you, Musiri, for bringing it up that way and presenting it that where do we go from here? How do we explore this together efficiently and appropriately? And also, I like the idea of the test plot as a way we could maybe explore this together. And I I really liked being able to look at that thing that was the actual plan, that you could look at all the 48 pages of it. And on the last page, I thought, oh, look at this great material from the EPA and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the United Nations Environment Program, and there are 14 different sources of information. And then I looked and I went, but they're all from 2005 or 2006, and that's 16 years ago. And I assume things have changed since then, and that we might want to have access to what, where things have new data to base the plan on. So that's basically it.
Thank you, Anita. Yes, Ryan.
May I suggest that we put a request in to have the integrated pest management presented to us at some point in the near future. I've been in other agencies where this exact question and complex, like, fear came up, and it came down to just really explaining the IPM. And then come to find out, one of the agencies, like Oswego, they use less chemicals on the entire park system than one person used at their household. So just getting that, I think if we could get a presentation to just start to understand it, and then have that conversation down the road, like continue to have that conversation, that would be great. A great starting point.
Thank you, Ryan. Yes, Missouri.
I guess we could also, so we could get meta too, and also consider the fact that, like, just because we do things doesn't mean we know the do harm at the moment, or should it be correct? Like how the advent of the car and burning fossil fuels, convenient, easy to do, but we now know 100 years later what the consequences are. The fact that we have been farming prior, like my parents are Kenyan. You don't go around in a typical farm in Kenya and spray things, and yet you can grow things in bounty. Granted, the soil is different climate, etc. So I get the argument that just because we're doing it, it's documented, it's being done by others, that's fine, but we have to also give ourselves room to try new things, not at the expense of the county, but also for the betterment of where we are, where we're living. So I get the argument, but again, goes back to where I start, right? Instead of going meta and getting preachy, how do we approach this? I think Ryan has a great suggestion there.
Thank you, Missouri. And my only, I think we need to move on, but my only comment about that is I loved reading that article about what they did at Harvard. And they did one test of 1 acre. And they were so successful that they have expanded it to 25 acres. And that was over a period of time. And Harvard is, so I don't want to discount, Harvard, the president of Harvard, their whole grounds. It's a historic site. They had a lot at stake, and they totally bought in, but not just them. It also was then gone to Princeton, and it's also gone to the New York Battery Park, and more and more and more places. So taking what Missouri said, all I want to know is how we can explore a way to effectively see if we can stop doing what they all say is at least more expensive. Harvard talked about it, hardcore dollars and cents savings in spraying fertilizer and applying water, sequestering carbon. All of those parts are part of this. So I don't want to just discount it because we got a plan. So I think it's great we have a plan. I'm glad we have a plan, but I want to reiterate what I just heard Missouri say and what I was struck by that article from Harvard University, because either we're going to dismiss them as a bunch of bozos who don't know anything, which I don't think anybody's doing. They actually did test it and they did spread it, and it has made a huge difference economically as well as the success and viability of their facilities. So I'm done with that. Somebody else want to comment? I'm ready to move on.
Let's just put it on the agenda as something to start, like we have to start somewhere. So
Yep.
The place, put it on the
Thank
agenda.
you. Thank you. All right. So that's that piece. Next one is the park-wide smoking ban update. And who's going to be doing that?
I am, as soon as I could get unmuted, sorry.
Sure, no problem.
There really isn't much of an update, which is why we didn't give a whole lot of time to this. In talking with staff, when we last spoke about this, we talked about, you know, the several options and the lack of enforceability and high costs and probably low ability to really affect any change and potentially, you know, cause more problems than what we've got now. And so I went back and staff and I talked about this, and I talked with our legal counsel as well. And, you know, it would be very difficult for us to pass a park-wide smoking ban without it having to have some sort of, I don't want to, we didn't say necessarily like a ballot initiative, but it would almost be at that level where it would have to be a very widespread type of thing. I spent a week at NRPA at our National Recreation and Park Association and had a chance to talk to a lot of colleagues and other directors and operators in the field. And we, at just a tabletop luncheon type of thing, we talked about park-wide smoking bans, and their overall impression is they're ineffective and they really just cause more problems than what the intent was to solve, unless, and this is the but, it validated what I had been saying at the start. If you have it as part of a statewide like clean air initiative, like the state of Alaska did, where it was, you know, you can't smoke in any public facilities, outside of public buildings, or in public places, then it's easy for us to have enforcement and ability to have some control over the issue of smoking. And so I guess the overall recommendation at this time is, unless there is somebody who really wants us to pursue a park-wide smoking ban, and have the board or the DAC consider that, my recommendation is it's not something that we should be looking at this point. I'm not saying it's not something that may not pop up again in the future, if again, maybe different clean air legislation changes or something to help support it, but it would be, in my opinion, detrimental to our efforts and a waste of both staff time and cost to produce signs and try and chase this idea around. If the DAC wants to explore it further than that, we will do so and come up with something to potentially take to the board for them to decide.
Sorry.
Could there be some sort of adjustment in a regional basis, like Jennings Lodge is near a school, maybe parks near schools are smoke free, but just because children smoking, I believe the campus is already smoke free, but I understand what you're saying. Maybe there's a little leeway there on, maybe it's just a handful, Concord, for example, too.
Well, again, it comes down to the issue of who is the authority putting that. Those mechanisms that you talk about, I mean, there's, again, I'll use at least the one that I know most, but Alaska, Colorado, and Missouri all had the same similar type of thing. There's a clean air smoking ban, and there's also bans on things like you can't have a liquor store within, 250 feet of a child care facility or education type of thing. With the clean air stuff, you couldn't have smoking within certain amounts and where children were present. We don't have any we don't have any authority as far as being able to enforce that, issue fines, citations, pursue non-compliant people all the way through to law enforcement and legal proceedings. I mean, when you put a ban like that and say you can't do this activity, it just gets us down into a legal mire that, again, I don't recommend that we look at unless there is a really strong feeling that there has to be something. Again, we try and apply things throughout the district. It would be very difficult for us to say, like, you can't do smoking just in these places under these conditions. But overall, I'm not advocating that a smoking ban is something that we tackle as a district.
Got it. Thank you. So can't be applied regionally, everything or nothing. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to comment because using the example of my street in front of my house, we asked them to do a traffic study and we found out there were cars doing in excess of 60 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, residential, not a big street. So we put speed bumps in. That's what we did, but it doesn't go to the enforcement. And I want to go to a different example that I would like us to consider discussing in the future in some way. And that is the vehicles on the trolley trail. There is no guidance as to what kind of motorized vehicles. Now, there's more and more and more. Dave, you heard that guy in your CPO meeting talking about having motorized vehicles on that trip that they all went on. It's getting to be more common, and yet there are no speed limits. There's been excessive amounts of complaints
Chair.
about people. Sorry,
I'm not quite sure what this has to do with a park-wide smoking ban.
I'll be happy to stir it in there so you can get it. We're talking about we have to start somewhere. You're just saying, so well, we can't do everything. We don't have park police. We're not going to be able to do it, so forget it. And that's unfortunately, if you prohibit it. Same with camping. You can't say you can't camp, so you're coming up with hours, but it's still going to be a way to support that. And you're not going to be the ones who are going to go out and police it. The police are going to be the ones who go out and police it. But if there is no rule, then they can't police it. And then there's a Supreme Court thing that says you can't unless there's places. So that's why you're going about the hours. I'm just saying to have that, no, we can't make it work 100%, so let's not do it. I have a big concern, and I get all kinds of comments about speeding and vehicles not being responsible to the pedestrians, the children, the dogs on leashes, etc.
But that's
on the trolley
It's a whole
trail.
different. That's a whole different issue, though. There's mechanisms.
I agree,
that can be
it's a
put into
different
place.
issue. I agree,
This
it's
is
a
about
different issue.
park-wide smoke. What is the speed bump equivalent on smoking?
I'm not going there. I just gave you an example. They did discover there were cars going that much faster. So the fact that we have, using Stringfield Park, the closest park, and for that matter, the Boardman Wetlands, they both have children areas, and yet there's no restriction on smoking in the children area. So all I'm saying is to throw the whole thing out, that we can't do it because we can't do it all, is a concern. I don't want to go on, but I please do not wish to have this be thrown out as being off topic. It fits. We need to be able to hear what our constituents say. There have been people who've complained about smoking next to children, and we need to look at how it's going to get addressed. If the staff's not going to do it, then we need to figure out a different way to bring it up.
No,
Yes,
come
Ben.
on. That
Yes,
is
Ben.
inflammatory growth
Yes,
for saying
Ben.
the staff's not
Ben,
going to do
you're
it.
up.
I would like an apology for that.
For what?
For saying if the staff's not going to do it. In no way,
You
shape,
just
or
said
form
you recommend
did I
not
say-
doing it.
did I
you
say
could have
that the
been
staff
clear.
was not going to
Thank
do
you,
it.
Mike. Go
What
ahead,
I
Ben.
said was I do not recommend that we pursue a smoking ban. That is it.
I got it. I appreciate it. And people have asked for it. So yes, Ben.
I've heard a couple things tonight that feel like we're telling a limited resource group to do more.
Yeah.
And it's like every single meeting, do more, do more, do more. I went to a really great presentation at the ORPA, Oregon Parks and Recreation Association meeting in Sun River this weekend about advisory groups, adversary or what was it? Adversary or your best friends, something like that. Anyway, advocate or adversary. And the park advisory board in Lincoln City were so amazing that stuff that their district could not do because of resources, they did it themselves. So if you all are interested in test plots, if you all are interested in putting up in signs for no smoking, get a Parks Foundation, get it done. I mean, if you truly want this in your community, figure out a way to do it yourselves, because you're only paying so much money in taxes, unless you want to advocate to raise your neighbor's taxes, which I haven't seen. Start a Parks Foundation and get it done. Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
Yes, Ryan.
I want to tack on to what Ben said, and also starting formalized friends groups, not informal friends groups, that there's structure. Also, I really suggest that we be serious about having an annual goal setting, and we really focus on what we can prioritize as a board or an advisory committee, and then stick to that and really invest our time in very specific goals.
That's a great idea.
Of the smoking ban, I think it's all about, Grover, I'm feeling like it's like the intention of the smoking ban and not necessarily enforcement, which is great. That's amazing. But let's start doing some goal setting and start putting those kinds of items on so we can accomplish some things as a board.
Great. So are you advocating we have a whole meeting to it or additional meetings? I'm not quite clear how we can do that.
Most advisory committees and commissions and council have annual goal setting so that it keeps them focused on what priorities they have for the year, so that they actually at the end of the year accomplish those priorities. We're wandering all over the place, and I think group we can do so much, but we've got to prioritize what we want to focus on. We've got to figure out how we're going to focus our energy and time and to those things, and really be advocates for the district to help us accomplish those things. Formalized friends groups, great way to get resources to do some of these things. Ben, I'm sure there's some notes that we can get from that presentation, but I really do think we need to start thinking about focusing and prioritizing.
Super. Thanks. So I love the idea that we could figure out a way to do formalized friends groups. I didn't know, I keep hearing that the Parks Department wasn't interested in that because they're too much trouble or whatever.
Well, okay, that's an idea. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of talking about that. I'm giving examples, but we have to figure out what are the limited things we're going to work on rather than everything, because we aren't actually accomplishing anything. In the last year, we have accomplished naming ideas for parks, and I'd like to know what we're going to accomplish from now on.
Well, our job is to gather the information to be able to make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. That's our job.
And we've accomplished one recommendation in well over a year. So I'd like us to really think about prioritizing what we're doing. From this point forward, we really need to consider that and make it an agenda item, and figure out goal setting.
Okay, so I'll take that to heart. We're going to have a goal setting session. Anything else on that topic? Thank you. So next is changes or status updates on ongoing projects.
The ongoing project report is really the capital improvement project report that's included in the division report under asset development or planning and development. That kind of lays out the different work that's ongoing in our capital projects. If anybody has any questions on that, I can answer what I can. Heather is not here tonight to answer any specifics, but we can certainly take questions back for her to answer when she returns.
Very good. Well, first of all, I want to give kudos to Heather one more time. I did the last time that I saw him on screen. I can't say in person, but because this is getting to be, feedback is being applied and added to this. I think everybody needs to look at that page. I don't know, it's page 2 of whatever, but it is the capital improvement 22-23 page. And there's a lot of information on there. And I know there's a bunch of questions about it. So, and I do believe we also had, that's that part, but does that cover? Oh yeah, Concord's on there, good. So so let's look at that page. Does everybody have that page handy? Okay, yes. Katie.
I would like to ask, from the last time we met, there was a little change where Justice Property is now TBD. Last time it said December, and there was a typo of it saying 23. So I'm just wondering, Mike, if you know anything about that.
Other than I know that with bringing on our new staff who were taking on that project, I don't know specifically, but I'm guessing it became a TBD when they understood the scope of the work and couldn't necessarily. I don't know that it's not still December, but I'm going to guess if it went to TBD, they needed to push that out, but they just didn't know how far.
With it being TBD, knowing it's still in that 22-23 year, so that's assuming that it's still going to happen before June of 23. That would
It
be the
being-
current plan, at least.
It being what?
The planning initial, the phase that's written in here, preliminary, or not preliminary, reviewing background.
It's not, I don't think it's been deprioritized or anything.
Okay,
Just
great.
when our new staff are coming on, it just may not be ready for like release in December, but they are
Okay.
working on it. We've had several meetings about it in the even just in the intervening month.
Okay.
So I know that it is ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I'm noticing there's notes popping up in the chat, and I'm not in a position to be able to catch any of the benefit of that and still participate in this meeting, so I don't know what to do about it. So I'm not responsible for anything that's in the chats as far as being able to respond to them or hear them, because I don't see how I can get them after the fact. Cool. Is that all for you, Katie? Yes, Ben.
Well, Grover, since you're not following the chats, I just wanted to say I apologize for my reaction about the Parks Foundation. I think that was a little bit preachy, but I do think it's a worthwhile conversation for getting stuff done. And I do agree with Ryan. Our Parks Board in Milwaukee does annual goal settings, and it really kind of helps the board align at the beginning of the year. And when you have that alignment, you have people invested in what everyone's doing. So I just want to think that say that that's a great idea, and it works. So thanks.
Thank you. And thanks for clarifying that. So I'm included. Okay, so we're still, yes, Ryan.
Oh, are we on the final report thing?
We're on the capital improvement project sheet. Is that what you're talking about?
Never mind.
Okay. We're still doing the section called changes of status updates, ongoing projects. And Heather put together several things, and yes, Missouri.
On the Jennings Lodge project, they're soliciting and reviewing proposals. Will we be able to see those proposals?
No, not the DAC is not part of the selection process for that.
Okay, so so the next opportunity to provide any feedback or for the community to view any additional information?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question or where you're going with this.
So I guess
proposals right now for the planning.
Plan for what?
For the Jennings Lodge, yes, recreation improvements. Finalizing the request for proposals is where it is right now. After that, we review proposals. Supposedly, and again, Heather's not here. She's much more in tune with this, but I'm guessing what improvements based on the feedback that is going on right now and has gone on for that.
See, that's the big mystery, Mike. There is no awareness out here. And I'm actually in sub area 1, which is where Jennings Lodge School is. We don't have a clue about what isn't being suggested, any gathering, none of that stuff. So I'm concerned when it says solicit, finalize requests for proposal and solicit and review proposals. And we haven't a clue what it's for. And if I remind you, it says on the budget that there's plan on spending $150,000. So somebody has some idea that the constituents, which leads me to what I want to ask you. The PGA community engagement plan, but they're pretty heavily investing Clackamas County money into that. And it speaks to levels of engagement. And one of the things supposed to happen at the beginning of a project is determine the level of community engagement. And the lowest level is to inform, which currently isn't happening here. But it's the higher levels get up into to include.
You're
Mike, I was still talking. I didn't ask for.
well, yeah, but your language is meant to be inflammatory, Grover. And I'm seeing nodding heads that I'm not just being paranoid on this.
Okay.
We're talking about a capital project that was meant to scope out what improvements might be made on this site. That's
Right.
it. We're not making the actual improvements in this year's budget. We're going to put out a contract that helps, that has a company that's going to guide us through that process, just like every other project that we're doing. We're not going to, we don't have time in the selection process to engage the DAC in a procurement process that's already overseen by procurement. It's not that we're not engaging in the public. There's already been public meetings over in the Jennings Lodge area. There's going to be more public engagement. To say that we're not engaging with the public is inflammatory.
Okay, Mike, when was this meeting that you speak of in the Jennings Lodge area that there were meetings? I'm sorry, I missed that. I live here.
And again, I told you, I may be mistaken. If they haven't happened, they will be happening. The natural presumption that you lead with, Grover, is that we don't do any public engagement. We just make decisions on our own with nothing.
Nah,
and
I'm sorry, Mike.
I've shown that we are engaging with the public. It may not be as fast as people want. It may not align with everybody's schedule, but any project that we're going to do, we are going to be going out to both the general stakeholders in the area and to the district wide. I explained that last month, and I believe the month before that as well.
Mhm.
If there hasn't been engagement, it didn't say that the next step next month was that we were going to be putting out the solicitations. It just said that was the next step.
It says by December.
No,
This
the
is November.
current steps were
Well,
December.
it says,
So-
but solicit
but-
revenue review proposal.
Not doing any engagement, and you've said that several times,
It's
and that's
correct.
just not true.
Okay,
Grover, may I step in for a minute?
sure.
So the staff of North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District are the stewards of the community's resources. They are hired to do specific activities to manage the dollars, make projects go forward, RFPs, writing RFPs, selecting RFPs. That is their skill set. That is what they are. That's why they are stewards of our community. That's what I do for the communities I work for. To have us involved in every single piece means maybe we should apply for those jobs, because that's what they're there to do. We are not there to read every single RFP response. We're not there to check every single dollar. We are here to be an advisory committee to
The Board of County Commissioners.
and to be supportive and help move projects along, not to hold them up by adding more process. By having an advisory committee add on to my process and at my agency,
Mhm.
it made it financially improbable to even go on with projects, because I was there to be the steward of the community's resources. So I think we need to show a little bit more respect, trust for our the staff that are running and are paid to be and have given their 40 hours plus a week to be stewards of our community. Now, what we need to do is we need to help them to determine what we're going to work on, goals we do, and we need to be advocates for them and a support network, not to pick them apart and cause more and more resources to go down the drain and answer little questions about line items and budgets.
Thank you.
Checks and balances for that.
Thank you. See, this is where you and I don't agree about everything. I'm a representative of the community.
I know you are, but you're picking at every single tiny little item.
I can't say every, Mike.
Stuff.
It's just
We're
really-
not doing anything. It's ridiculous.
I know, thanks. So Ben, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just had a quick question that probably is like, I want to have like Michael give me like a 1 sentence answer, and then I'll probably have a follow-up question or comment after that. That will be like 2 seconds. This RFP we're talking about, can you explain the scope of the work just really, really briefly?
No, I can't. Again, this
Well-
was Heather's report. She's not here. If you guys
Oh.
would like more information about
Okay,
that,
okay.
I
That's
may
fine.
be completely talking about a different what scope that she or putting it out for
Okay,
review than what she.
okay.
But she's
All
not.
right, fair enough. But what this brings up is like, if there's RFPs that are going out that may be relevant, like park design or something like that, it may be good to have someone like representative from this group be on the selection committee, because that's pretty common in other districts. Not knowing what this RFP is, like I can't comment on that, and I can't we shouldn't be commenting on the past, but we should be like, setting goals for the future. So it would be good for having DAC representative on RFP processes, because that's just pretty standard practice.
Yeah, I don't disagree having them in on that, but not the board having a say after we, in the review overall. That
Right.
just slows things down. But yes,
Right.
if somebody would like to be part of a review process for any of that, we can add
But
that.
that DAC member would be an equally contributing voting
Yeah,
person to the scoring.
and that's just it. This is a procurement process. There's
Yeah.
scoring, there's forms, there's there's a process that goes.
Oh, no, I mean, Ryan and I get it. So
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And they brought up some excellent questions to even know. And so my request specifically is that we get some sense of what is this proposal focusing on, so that we know, because having a finalized request for proposal and solicit and review proposals, what is the scope of it? It's all that would be helpful, but we don't have a clue about that. But then it does not mean I want to not talk about the part about community engagement, which is something the county has a commitment to, is spending a lot of money to move us farther forward on that. It isn't going to get resolved in this conversation, but that's what we need to know more about on these proposals, and where does it fit in the community engagement format? That's all. So that's my specific request before our next meeting, to know that that's going to get covered. And we'll be all the way into December by then. So it's, this has been, never mind.
I'm not quite sure I understand your demand/request. What are you wanting?
Well, first
from
of all,
staff?
if you're going to call it a demand, I don't know how I can live with it, because there's nothing demanding about it. You don't have to do it, Mike. You don't at all. But when I hear that this is a proposal that's going to be put out for review, we have no idea what the scope of that proposal is. That's all we're asking.
And so you're
And
saying
the
that you
second
want
part
DAC
was, just a second, and the second part was, PGA has been authorized and is spending a lot of money on the process of rolling out community engagement process. And this is an opportunity to consider what is the level of community engagement, because there are multiple levels that will be appropriate to this project, because there is none of that yet. And so those are nice coal-lined things. This is a project, there's an opportunity, and PGA is promoting it. So that's all I'm asking. If that's a demand, I don't know. My request is that we have some information about that. It's not here and she's not here, so that's my request.
to provide anytime we're putting scope documents
I'm
together.
asking about this one in specific, Mike. Please don't generalize
that's
to the whole
different.
world. Mike, please don't. I really, it's not helpful.
Well, to me, there's a difference between asking for something very, very specifically and saying that this is something that you presume that we haven't been doing it well enough.
Mike,
If
I'm
gonna
talking about
apply
this one in
something, I wanna
particular,
apply it
please.
System-wide.
Please, I'm asking about this one in particular. It's listed here that there is a request for proposal, soliciting and reviewing the proposal, and there's no statement about what it is. I'm not talking about the whole world. I'm talking about that one.
Provide clarity on what that is then.
Yes, please. And the second part of it is, as far as the community engagement levels, what is the focus that's going to be applied, given that's the goal of PGA to roll out throughout the county And it's a matter of, Ryan could tell more about it than I could, and if Raphael is here, he also has quite of a background in that. It is determining what is the level of community involvement that this particular project will have, and there's 5 levels, I think. So those are my two requests, that we can have that clarified.
So we will re-review with you all next month then, because we've given it to the DAC before. I don't think Katie or Masiri or Raphael have seen it. But what we do, because we have 2 different outreaches, we have the PGA outreach, and we always work with PGA on any kind of outreach efforts. I don't know if there's a thought that maybe we don't, but we work with PGA on any outreach efforts that we do, whether it's messaging or campaigning. But then we also have an internal process, and that's where our marketing and communications department puts together marketing documents that you all have seen the formats of those many, many times. What we're going to be sending out as far as if we're going to do mailers, what the postcards would look like. If we're going to do flyers, what those are going to look like.
I think that's way beyond what we were asking, Mike. It really isn't. This is about one project, specifically what is the proposal's topic, scope, focus, and second of all, for this project, what is the engagement of community engagement? What's the level of community engagement that is appropriate for this, or is determined is up for grabs? Those are the only 2 things, not all those things you were just talking about.
No, I just told you the level of engagement that we're going to be doing. I'm not quite, that's why I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, I'm not, I'll take this offline and be clear with you in another time, because not everybody seems to be on this. Somebody else wants to hear this get resolved now. Say so. Other than that, we'll take it.
Write it
offline.
down, Grover, write it down. Send him an email or something. Get off. We've had enough of this for this evening, okay?
Thank you, Dave.
I'm tired of listening to you trying to pick. So
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry,
Dave.
but I couldn't take it any longer. So
Got it.
if you want us
Are
all, if you want us all to leave, we'll do.
Okay, glad you're there. Okay, so I will send that specific request in. Okay, so that's that. The Concord project's on here.
The Concord project's on here every month. There hasn't been much of an update on the infrastructure project itself, which is the roof replacement, air vat, all of that. It is kind of not, I don't want to say stuck in procurement, but it is in procurement, and they have their own processes for getting the contract signed to officially have that project to go. We hope to have that contract going through here in the next couple of weeks, which will then allow us to move forward with more of the design details on that. From the Concord Library project, again, there's been staff review. I think I had even talked it last month. The staff is starting to review the initial layouts of park and playground amenities now that the library site location has been set, and working with the landscape architecture and OPSIS firm on aspects of that, but nothing again that's set in stone. We are in negotiations aren't right. We're trying to acquire the Walmart property piece that was part of the original plan, and we're running into some difficulties with Walmart's willingness to sell. We don't necessarily have a solution right now, but we are going to be trying to keep that going. So that's really all I had on Concord, other than we do have our conditional use hearing for the building office occupancy happening December 1st. I'm hoping that goes smoothly. We'll know more after that December 1st hearing.
Thank you. Ryan? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Mike, I'll send you an email. We did receive a request about that conditional use permit. I'll just send you an email to clarify so we can get that staff or that citizen up to date.
Perfect.
And does that include just the one for the office in the Concord building conditional use? Or does it include the other conditional use as well?
No, it was decided back when we were looking at doing this infrastructure project and moving our offices and how we split things up, that the conditional use process for the overall library project can't start yet because the plans haven't been set yet. So you can't ask for conditional use on stuff that we don't know exactly what's going to be where exactly. So we needed to move forward with the conditional use for the office occupancy before the rest of the building project. So it's a separate process unto that project in itself.
Okay, that's, it's not quite, anyway, yes, Missouri.
Oh, if Walmart complies and sells, would that change the project at all? Would NCPRD hold on to the property and then develop it later?
I really can't get into much detail in a public
Okay.
meeting. If you wanted to talk offline, Mr., you can give me a call.
Okay, great. So I think it is time for public comment. Jessica, do we have people in the audience?
We do. And
Okay.
And looks like Jan Carruthers has her hand up.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I was just curious to know about the idea of the smoking restrictions, an effort to reduce smoking in the parks, and also just to stir in an effort to have vehicles slowed down. What would it be like to have a community changing consciousness campaign rather than worrying about something that would be enforced as an equivalent, some kind of sign that says, be kind, don't smoke, families are here, that kind of thing. Have you ever seen anything like that, Mike, or anybody else? Because people reduced smoking long before there were laws against smoking, quite effectively, but I know it's a major campaign. So I'm just curious if you think that there would be any value in that. It would be signs, but it wouldn't necessarily involve anything that would be remotely like enforcement.
That I would defer to whoever had originally made the comment. Those types of efforts are typically put on by foundations and friends groups versus staff doing that effort. It's not uncommon to see that. And that was actually, if you remember back in the discussion, one of the options that we had said is not to try and enforce a ban, but to simply have, hey, thank you for not smoking. The costs of non-compliance or the costs of creating the signs is not insignificant. We have a lot of
No.
parks.
It's a campaign. I know.
Yeah.
It's a PR campaign.
Yeah, but it's I guess overall, and I could send you the citations if you wanted. I don't have them on hand, but those types of campaigns are not effective or have not been effective. There are certain areas I'm sure that they have worked, but in general, unless you've got a strong foundation or friends group or again, like American Lung Association type of group out there.
Right. Well, actually,
yeah.
I'm not asking whether they're effective without big money. I appreciate the big money aspect.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about, have you got any parks examples where parks have friends of or other foundations have actually done something effectively like that, or anybody else?
And I guess my short answer is I'm not aware of any, but that doesn't, there's a lot of parks and districts that I've never seen, but not any that I've been associated with closely in any of the states I've been associated with. But I'm not saying that that's, again, all inclusive.
Ben or Ryan? Thank you.
Jan, yeah, I could look up it in Google just as easy as you can. So
Yeah, I can. Okay.
that would be my source.
Okay. So no, thank you. That was my question.
Thank you, Jan. Jessica, anybody else have their hand up?
Yeah, we have Jeanette DeCastro as well.
Thank you. Anita, do you want to speak now? You're muted, Anita.
Somebody asked me to read something who would have stayed but had to leave, and so.
Okay, you want to do that after
This is
Jeanette?
Jeanette. Okay, thank you. So hi, my name is Jeanette DeCastro. I've attended in the past. Thank you. It's good to be here. I wanted to talk about the Justice Park property, which is close to me geographically. And I appreciate the help I've gotten from staff when I have questions, and also DAC members. I wanted to just really directly ask that it be prioritized. It's on the CIP list. I'm really excited about that. I am aware the long range planner needs to get their feet under them. They're just newly with the district. But as the public outreach comes together, and I know that's a really important piece, I'd just like to make sure that like our DAC Area 3 reps are kind of pulled in to help with some of that outreach, if they can. And then, wanting to know if the scope is finished out by December 23, hopefully, or sometime a little after that. Is there a sense when construction documents will be ready, or if it goes out to bid and then there's a bid, and, you have to rebid it, or, there's some sort of delay, or I know in construction, there's a lot of variables. So I think in asking that it be prioritized, I was hoping to ask for two, is there any way in the process that steps can be shrunk down to try to get us to a finished park? I joked around a little bit, like I wish I could just transport a copy of Ball Michelle Park and put it on Justice. I know that's not how it works, but it's my hope that it could come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. So, Mike, were you going to respond to her, or should Anita go first?
Yeah, I would like to just bring up the clarifying point with the Justice property, just to remember this is the first year of the process. We put limited funds to research what the community and the district wants to happen. We do not have any dedicated funds for future construction. So there's no money in this existing budget for constructing anything. This is just to figure out what the community wants, what needs to be done. So construction dollars that may come, depending on budget issues, depending on the size scope, but more than likely it's something that would be, have to be put onto a capital improvement plan, at some point. I'm not saying it won't be soon, but there is nothing in the budget right now for constructing anything there. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Anita.
Well, Katie, did you want to read what Lindsay wrote, or do you want me to read it?
Would you like to read it? I felt like I asked earlier and I got the clarification I was looking for, which is as far as when the planning was occurring. But Anita, if you want to read her email, that'd be great.
Okay, it's basically what Jeanette was saying, but it's from another community member. She says, "Hello, DAC members. I have a conflict with the meeting tonight, but I would please request that my email be read as my comment so it can be recorded in the minutes. I come to a meeting every few months to buzz about Justice Park. While I usually feel cheerful and hopeful, lately I just feel dismissed and impatient. I would like NCPRD to commit to an expedited timeline for this park. A huge welcome to the new long-term planner. Welcome aboard. We have a lovely small project for you to jump on. We're asking for a very humble park and an expedited timeline due to the failure to make this planned park space come to fruition over the past 2+ decades. I will be looking forward to some updates and a concrete timeline in the next month's meeting." And that's from Lindsay in sub-area 3.
Thank you. So are you done now, Anita? Okay. Great. So any more public comments? Okay.
No,
That
it's good.
completes the public comments. So now it's DAC member reports. Yes, Ben.
It's not really a report, it's more of a comment. Like I said earlier, I was at the Oregon Park and Recreation Association conference last week, and it was really great to see members of NCPRD there and participating. This is a really great, wonderful conference, and I appreciate Michael's support for the staff that attended, including Heather, Candy, Alex, probably others that I'm not mentioning, but I think it's a really great organization. And I think that you all as board members, there's opportunities to get involved, to actually understand that other park districts out there are suffering the same problems that we are. It's not uncommon. And I'm on the planning and design committee for ORPA, and we have quarterly meetings that present other challenges that other park districts in the state are going through. So I really encourage you all to get involved if you can, but I also wanted to just put a shout out to Michael and the district for participating in that, because I think it's really great, and I appreciated seeing everybody out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Anita.
Yeah, I remember going to an ARPA conference that you ran about climate change. And so I appreciate that you remind us again about it, that the organization. And also, I just wanted to say, I'm not like wanting to sound like rainbows and unicorns and hearts and flowers, but when I talked about having each sub area shown in terms of how many parks it has or how much acreage or what amenities it has, I certainly did not want to make it into people competing from one sub area to the next. That's the exact opposite of what I would want it to achieve. But I would like to be tuned into the needs of a sub area that I don't live in, because otherwise I won't know what they've got going.
Thank you. Yes, Joel.
Hey, everybody, and lucky for you, Anita, I've got something great going on that you can participate in on November 20th at the Milwaukee Community Center. The famous Thanksgiving dinner is back, and it will be a congregate meal. I'm going to put a link for reservations in the chat for everyone. This is a great fundraiser for Meals on Wheels and the nutrition program that serves the entire district and is a vital resource for our community. So please share this information with everyone you have and come attend. It should be a good time. The only other thing that my board asked for me to share with everyone also is at the Milwaukee Community Center, the gift shop has been redone. It is now called the Artesian Market, I believe is what they were labeling it. But it does feature completely redone, and it does feature over 300 vendors, all from the NCPRD area. So please come by the community center and check it out. It's a great resource for our district, and hope to see you guys at the Thanksgiving dinner as well.
Is there a cutoff, Joel, as far as when reservations can be made for that? For the dinner?
Closes on November 20th, the same day, apparently. So if you visit the website, though, Grover, you will be able to find out all that information, including a full menu.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Yes, Missouri.
If anyone else has anything, I can go last. This is more of a, I believe Katie, myself, and Raphael are still not receiving emails properly. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing this. Just wanted to point that out still. I know, Michael, you said that the team is addressing this, but just want to make sure you're aware that it's still an issue.
Yeah, we are actively working with our tech service department to try and figure out why some people are getting stuff and others aren't. David, you had a weird one too, didn't you, have where it went to everybody but you? So we are trying to figure it out, but everybody is scratching their heads at this point of why it's happening intermittently.
Cool, thank you.
Yes, Ryan.
I just wanted a comment. Going through, thanks for the update. It's great. And I just want to say I'm so excited about the first adaptive and inclusive costume dance at the Concord School. Give your staff kudos on that. That was amazing. And then I'm kind of excited about the board game night because I'm a nerd. So give your staff kudos on the good work they do, please.
Thank you, Ryan. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just wanted this to share with you all, just so you know that it's not NCPRD. It's multiple departments. There is an email issue. We have not figured it out. And we're working on it, but it's in multiple departments and it's just hit and miss. It's just sporadic. We don't know how or why, but believe it or not, I can't email one department at all. It does not accept my emails. So we got to fix it. It's real. It's bizarre. I don't know what it is, but we'll get to the bottom of it. I just didn't want you to think that it had anything to do with NCPRD. It's not. It's a system problem, apparently.
Thank you, sir. Joel, do we have something else?
Yeah, hey, I apologize. I forgot to add this. I guess it's more of a comment too, or maybe floating a potentially unpopular idea, but I would like to suggest we consider meeting in person again as soon as possible. I think it would do a lot to make these meetings more productive. And I think that there's, I don't know what kind of policies the county would necessarily have against that. There's meetings happening in person all over the place. And this board in particular, I think would really benefit from that kind of interaction. So I would really strongly encourage our board and maybe staff to investigate the potential for that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that'd be a great idea. And we go to the hybrid meetings. And so those who can still come in. My only request is we have enough space so that we're not in a small room together, because there still is, I mean, COVID isn't over yet. But I think it's a great idea. Thanks. I don't see any more hands up. I did have one other thing, listening to Missouri's comment about the DAC thing, and I'm sorry to find out it's a bigger problem than people thought it was. But the other is when people send stuff in, since we're a public body that's directed to us, how does that stuff get into the public record? That part is a bit of a mystery to me, and I don't know what the answer is. But when constituents, residents to this body send information, where does it go? As far as being kept in the public record. If you can send us up to the BCC, you know where it goes. And yes, Mr. Savas.
Let me take a stab at that one. In general, everything that comes in on the system is stored on the hard drive in a permanent kind of a fashion. So if there's a need for a record or there's a records request, then our administration sends basically a particular request gone through the attorney to our technical services department to do that search. So it would be it'd be far too much work to store for each department to store every email to every person, so forth. So the most efficient way of handling it is simply on an as needed basis, but everything is public record.
Okay, thanks. I was really thinking also though how it fits into planning future agendas and the like from that perspective. But so that's if somebody wanted to do a public record check. I just meant that, does it get captured somewhere so it can be a suggestion for future? Because pretty much what's been driving a lot of our agendas are the next thing that the timeline says we have to deal with it, etc., as opposed to looking ahead. And the whole thing, I love the idea about the budget requests. That's a chance for people to stir in ideas that could then affect the budget. But still, how do we get them in conversation? How do we get to address like the thing about the parks and being able to be more mindful and so on and so forth? So that's where mine came from. But I appreciate that it isn't lost, but it isn't available either. So I have to resolve that now, but that's a concern I've had for a good while. Any other comments? So The last thing to say is there any other business? Yes, Mike.
We skipped over the division reports, but they stand for themselves. What I was really hoping to do was just highlight, Ben talked about the ORPA conference that we were just at. At that conference, NCPRD was the recipient of 2 awards, one a personal award and one was a project award. So we won a design award for the safety striping of the trolley trail, which was a great honor to be awarded by the state for that. More as a partnership project of the different agencies involved in making that happen. But most importantly, there's an award given by ORPA called the Spotlight Award, which is given to the unsung heroes, the leaders who lead from behind quietly but effectively. And this year, Candy Ho was awarded the Spotlight Award. So we're very happy for her. It was very difficult to keep that a surprise, and I think she was surprised. So we were very pleased to be honored twice at our conference, of which we had 17 staff there. So it was a great showing, and everybody had a really good experience. So that was the only thing I wanted to add to the division reports, was just to let you know about those 2 awards and honors that we got. And thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for those reports. I have been appreciating the chance to read them. Since we're not going to review them, they've been read. Future dates, December agenda submission or no later than Wednesday, November 16th at 5 p.m. Finalizing of the agenda will be on November 21st of 2022 at 5 p.m. So does that work for you, Ryan? Okay. And does that work for you, Mike?
Well, no, this is in keeping with the way that the rest of the boards and commissions have their agenda setting. Gary Schmidt had told me that we switched to email agenda setting. So that deadline is, we have people submit agendas, submissions, and then we'll send out emails to the chair, the vice chair, Commissioner Savas, and obviously our internal staff. And then we are just trying to say that we'll be finalizing that agenda then on the 21st with some emails anticipated in between.
Well, thanks for the heads up on that. I was not aware until this moment that change had taken place.
It just happened right before we had to put the agenda out. So I apologize.
Okay. The next NCPRD board meeting, that's the board, is on December 7th. And it's going to be both in person and online.
Correct. Okay. We're testing out the hybrid system that we hope to replicate for the DAC with this NCPRD board meeting at Concord.
So it's at Concord. Okay.
Yes.
So good.
And I would encourage any DAC members that would like to attend. This is the intention to be a quarterly board meeting. We're still finalizing the agenda, but it will be at Concord on the 7th. So we would welcome anybody to be there.
Great. And our next meeting for us is on December 14th. And things that we've talked about is planned agenda topics, which we have none listed, but we talked about tonight about the integrated plan.
Integrated pest management. Yeah, I'll get with Kevin and our staff and see what we can come up with by December. We may do it in a couple of different parts potentially, just to break up the work. But yeah, we can certainly do that.
Okay, I did want to clarify, because as I remember, the topic wasn't we just talk about the integrated pest management plan. It was also to discuss other options, or did I miss that?
we said we were going to start with just doing more a breakout of our existing plan and explaining what we do and how we do it. I can tell you, I don't have staff resources to be doing a lot of research on alternative methods and how we would implement them. If there were specific things that needed to be looked at, I would suggest you send them to me via email and let me know, and I can look and see how difficult that's going to be. Because we're still all working, and most of the people that I rely on are the people that are out in the field, and they're still out in the field. So I want to be considerate to the amount of time that we're spending on some of these things, unless we're really going to be diving in, and then I'm going to have to figure out how what doesn't get done to take time to do this. So we can present on what we do now, and have a breakout, have some slides, talk about our logs. Maybe I was even going to see if we can come up with a graphical map to show, where and when we've applied glyphosate over the last, period of time, but some of that stuff is going to take time, and we're going into Thanksgiving, and then and a bunch of staff are gone for that. It really gives us about a week and a half from this meeting to prepare a report that's ready in time to put and get it all through the review and publicize. So I'm trying to manage the expectations of what we can realistically give you.
Thank you. The other things we talked about was formalizing a friends group and goal setting session. Those are the two things that were recommended in this meeting to consider putting on the agenda for some point.
Would you like us to put that on the agenda for consideration in December, January timeframe?
What do you
January
think?
is a good month to usually do goal settings.
Okay, what do you think, Ryan?
I think it should be on the list for goal setting, and do the goal setting in, which typically I've seen it done in January. The friends group, where did that didn't come from me.
Actually,
I mean, I'm not suggesting we talk. I mean, I'm not suggesting we talk about formalizing friends group program. It's just one of those. That's a lot of work for, and that's a lot of staff time. It's just that's one of the examples I was giving. But we could talk about it as a goal for next calendar year. I think that would be good for goal setting.
Okay. Yeah.
Goal setting January is what I'm hearing. I typically those are best facilitated. Would it be the board, the DAC's preference for me to try and find somebody to facilitate that separate from a meeting, or is that something that you all as a body want somebody who's got experience amongst yourselves to facilitate the goal setting, or the chair at his pleasure can facilitate that as well? But it's usually more of a structured type of discussion.
Right. Now, I would feel that I wouldn't be able to be the representative from sub-area 1 that I am if I had any part of the facilitation. So I would opt not to do that, because I'd like to be a participant as well.
Well, let me reach out to PGA and see. I think they're the body that has facilitators that can help with that. I'm not sure if doing goal setting is but I think somewhere in-house within the county, there's a resource that we can reach out to have somebody that's more of a neutral third party lead the discussion.
I hope it wouldn't cost anything like significant, right?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll certainly ask, but I don't think so. And if we had to hire somebody out, it's also, it's a good worthy expense. I would more recommend, if we're going to go to that level of hiring somebody, that we look more at a board retreat where goal setting is part of it, but we can get a little more bang for our buck than trying to accomplish something in an hour and a half meeting with other agenda items.
I concur on that latter point. Going to do it we can do all the stuff that was recommended, why we should be in person together and so on and so forth. So, good. Thank you. So that completes the future dates and issues on that. And so now, is there any more business? Okay. We're adjourned. Thanks.
Well,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
good